What are the common mistakes you see organisations make when disposing of reselling?
A lot of organizations are pretty good at reselling their equipment. I was going to say we've trained them well, but the process has developed over many, many years, obviously. It's not just us, but we do a bit of an education piece. And back to one of my previous roles as an account manager, I spent a lot of time talking to engineers in the public and the private sector of how we can work together to do this best. I mentioned earlier we tend to work on commission, so it's in our best interest to maximize the value of every asset, but we need the vendors to have that too. The simple stuff is the easiest. So include the accessories, include the leads. If it's an ECG, include the patient leads. If it's an ultrasound, include the transducers with it. If it's an asset that requires consumables to run and you're replacing your fleet of, can't think of a good example off the top of my head, your fleet of this asset, you're 10 of them in your hospital, you're replacing the fleet, make sure you include the consumables, because that again means the next user of that kit can use it straight away. They're not able to go and source consumables before they can even put the thing into use. That helps to maximize the value of the asset. The other thing we see, and this is more specific to the engineering side actually, the organizations that do resale very well, for want of a better term, are the ones that when they're replacing a fleet of anesthetic machines, I'm working with a hospital at the moment, replacing their fleet of anesthetic machines, they're upgrading them. They're staying with the same manufacturer, but they're upgrading to a newer model. And what they're doing, once they're doing them in batches, as you often do with anesthetic machines, but when that last batch comes through to Hilditch for sale, they're also going to include all their spares. All the spare parts that they've got racked up in their workshop that aren't going to be relevant to the new model. Well, let's clear some workshop space first and foremost, because the new model of anesthetic machine is going to require some spares. But also let's add value to the units we're selling. Can we sell them with the most commonly required spare parts, for example? That really helps the resale value, because it means, again, that next user is going to get more usage out of you.
How early in the asset's life cycle should trust be thinking about the exit strategy and the resale value?
The short, cheesy answer to that is day one of the procurement process. If you're looking to buy some new anesthetic machines, I think, this is my belief, part of that thought process should be, how long are these anesthetic machines going to be in service for? How are we going to maintain them? And what are we going to do at the end of that period? So to give some rough ballpark kind of figures on that, we're going to buy 10 anesthetic machines. We intend to run them in our hospital for 7 years. So we're going to take out a service contract for 7 years, I assume. We're going to have to find a way of maintaining them for 7 years. We're going to train our engineers in-house, or we're going to use an external provider, whatever it might be. That's up to the organization. But at the end of 7 years, those 10 anesthetic machines will still be worth something. And depending on their model, on their brand, on their specification, it could be worth significant value, especially the fact there's 10 years. If they're worth £5,000 a piece, that's £50,000 you've got in assets at the end of 7 years. So as part of your procurement process, you also need to be thinking, it's a game of chess. You've got to think 2 moves ahead. What are we going to do in 7 years' time? Very difficult to predict what your demand in theatres is going to be in 7 years' time. But you're more than likely going to need some new anesthetic machines. And that £50,000 you're going to get from the resale of the old ones,
Starts adding number towards.
it might not buy your new fleet of anesthetic machines, but it might start to pay for the maintenance of your new anesthetic machines. The way I see it, if we were really integrated in the way we work with some organizations, is we can have almost this rolling program, and it's a rolling system of rebates or sale proceeds, or whatever you want to call it, from the equipment you're currently deeming redundant and moving out of your organization, compared to the new equipment coming into your organization. With bigger organizations, obviously it becomes more and more significant values. Smaller practices and clinics on the high street aren't obviously making mega money from their resale, but it still becomes an income stream that I strongly believe should be directed in some way back to the benefit of patients, back to the maintenance, back to the procurement of new equipment. So to answer your question of when should you consider resale, all the time or day one, I guess it's depending which way you think about it.